Daniel and Kayla's Wedge project. We're trying to reduce our carbon footprint.
Oh, okay.
Wind electricity. It would displace coal-based electricity, and the cost is medium. Environmental groups would love the switch to carbon-free, clean energy sources that's renewable, while energy companies would not like having to take workers out of all the mines and put them to building wind turbines, which could be costly for them. Solar electricity. The solar PV would displace coal-based electricity, and the cost would be pretty expensive. Taxpayers would feel mediocre about this because they may or may not really have to pay for the solar panels, while environmental groups would once again be really happy with the switch to renewable energy that's clean. Forest storage. Carbon would be stored in new forests planted all across the globe. Manufacturers would be okay with this because it wouldn't affect them too much, and environmental groups would love it because we're planting new trees, allowing more life and more ecodiversity, and the cost would be fairly low. Efficiency electricity. This would increase efficiency of power generation, so instead of wasting most of our energy, for example, on light bulbs producing heat instead of light, we would switch over to more efficient light bulbs that would produce more light than heat. The cost would be fairly low, and industrialized countries and their governments would feel mediocre about that because while it would require switching all of the light bulbs they have, the new light bulbs would also be cheaper. Manufacturers would not like this too much because then they would have to stop producing their current light bulbs and switch over to more efficient light bulbs, which might be more expensive for them to make. Efficiency buildings. To do the efficiency buildings wedge, we have to increase insulation, furnace, and lighting efficiency. The cost would be low. Manufacturers would not like this too much because they would have to redesign the buildings they're making, but taxpayers would be mediocre because while the initial cost could be higher, the building's electricity and water costs could be lower. Biofuels. Biofuels are fuels made from plants, and they will replace petroleum fuels. The cost is medium, and industrialized country governments will not be too happy because then they would have to switch from all of the fuel sources they're using now to new fuel sources. However, energy companies would love this because environmental groups would love this because we're switching from carbon fuels to renewable biomass fuels that do not produce as many emissions. CCS hydrogen, or carbon capture and storage hydrogen, would be hydrogen fuel made from fossil sources, and it displaces hydrocarbon fuels. The cost would be medium, and energy companies would be ambivalent towards this because it wouldn't affect them too much because they could easily switch to this type of fuel. And industrialized countries would like this because they could capitalize on the hydrogen they already have and use it more efficiently.
Okay.
Efficiency transport. This would include making ways of transport already existing more efficient and creating more efficient transport for the public. If we increase automobile fuel efficiency, 2 billion cars projected by 2050, we could get one wedge down. The cost would be lower, and because of that, taxpayers would like that. Industrialized countries would also like that because they could easily transition from cars that are not efficient to cars that are more efficient without too much change to their current transportation infrastructure. Conclusion. In all, the taxpayers would be medium about this because generally the cost would even out. Energy companies would not be happy because it would be a lot of work and money for them. Environmental groups would be very happy because they would be able to enjoy a lot of clean energy sources. Manufacturers would, while they would have to switch a lot of the times, they'd also be making a lot of new materials, which would have them pretty mediocre about this. Industrialized country governments would be pretty happy with the little amount of work we'll have them doing, but developing country governments would have to do a lot of work, so that they would not be as happy. But all in all, everyone's pretty happy.